So, as you're ready, tell me your life story.
Okay. Where do I start?
We always used to steal the potatoes out of farmers' fields.
Of course, money was short. If you wanted any money, you had to earn it.
Try not to think about it too much because it can be a bit depressing.
Of course, where I lived, there was 8 shops. Sweet shop, butchers, chemist, hardware, co-op, suits and shoes and things, a greengrocer's and a fish shop, and there's one more. It was a provisions, like, you know.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in. You couldn't really get, you know. I mean, I'll always remember the sweet shop, because it was Mr. G's, the sweet shop, and he wasn't a very well man. And he asked me once. He said, "Do you know London Road where the doctor's is?" I said, "Yeah, Dr. Beckett." "Yeah, that's it. Would you mind go and get me prescription?" Of course, I used to run there and run back. Get him his prescription. "Oh, just a minute, Johnny." I was known as Johnny in those days, not John, Johnny. Here, he gave me a bar of milk chocolate, like this. I said, "Oh, thank you very much." Every time I was round there, I said, "Do you want any more? Do you want your prescription?" And I was back and forth, but I was a bit mean with it, because I didn't give George and Gordon any. I just ate it myself, and I realised later, I thought, you know, you mean thing, you know. Yeah, I mean, you used to watch well, you never used to watch it, you used to listen to the radio, because my dad would say, "Quiet now, the news is on." We always used to look at the radio, you know, listening to it. You know, no such thing as tellies then. Yeah, we used to guess who was going to be the newsreader. Arbody Dell, I can't really remember him now, but they was coming on that often. Yeah, we all, George would say somewhat, you know, but yeah.
So half the ship would have been first class. I was a first class steward. So I was at the front of the ship. And in the rear of the ship was the £10 pommies. And the stewards that dealt with the £10 pommies had a much better life than we had serving the first class people, because they were as tight-fisted as anything. When they got to Australia, the tips that the £10 pommy stewards got outweighed the tips that we got in the first class 100-fold. We hardly got anything, no tips at all. But yeah, I'd been to Hong Kong, Australia, India, through the Med, quite a few places in the Merchant Navy in just that 18 months. But I came out of it because there was quite a bit of a criminal element within the crew. The ship was always boarded at docks by police. Police coming in to arrest somebody, or somebody stowed away, and we didn't get that.
But we were never ever bored. You see, kids today on the laptops and on their iPhones and things. We hadn't got such luxuries, but what we did have was a lot of countryside around us, and we could all swim at a very early age because that's what we taught ourselves to do. We never went hungry either, because we always used to steal the potatoes out of farmers' fields and go scrumping for apples in the season. We'd also dig up pig nuts, which you don't hear about anymore, but they're the most gorgeous thing ever. And these grow in the fields quite freely, and they're the most lovely tasting nut. Why anyone has never commercialised them, I'll never know, because we used to sit for hours digging pig nuts up and eating them. They were beautiful. But the demolitions started while we were sort of 8 and 9, 10 of the old farmhouse in the village, which was a huge place, a 3-storey house, to make way for a new housing development called Shady Grove now, a lot of bungalows. And the farmhouse it was quite a mystery to us, because it was always dark and it always looked gloomy. And of course, kids' imaginations run riot. And we thought, there's ghosts in there, there's got to be a tunnel. Every old house has a tunnel. And of course, when they started demolishing it, a building site's a kids' playground. And it was one winter time, as I recall, and we was in the school holidays. And my friend Tony, God bless him as well, he's dead now, but my friend Tony decided to set fire to some old timber that we'd got and make a bit of a fire to keep us warm. And he picked up this jerry can, which he said, I wonder if there's anything in it, lit a match and actually put the match in the jerry can, which immediately blew a huge amount of flame up his arm, burnt all his arm and his jumper. And of course, that was the end of that little escapade for that day. However, following day, we all got together again looking for this tunnel. And Tony, again, who was the most accident-prone lad I've ever met in my life, shouted, I found it, I found it. And we all ran to him as he was disappearing down these steps. And all of a sudden he disappeared up to his chest in what was a cesspit, which was the old sort of sewage from all the farm toilets and things like that, which looked like concrete, I must confess, but it wasn't. Help us out, lads, he shouted, help us out. And the stench was so absolutely appalling, we just sort of said no. He managed to drag himself out of this cesspit. If it had been any deeper, it would have killed him. And we followed him up to home, which he lived opposite us, and we watched his dad throw him out the door and over the hedge next to us. He was so, and it literally, his dad said, don't you dare come near this house until you've cleaned yourself up. And we ended up the rest of the day chucking freezing cold water at him to try and clean all this mess off. And boy, oh boy, did he stink. He really did.
But back in those days, we used to fetch pigs full. I used to have a lot of little jobs, you know, like paper jobs. Of course, money was short. If you wanted any money, you had to earn it. And if I wanted to go to Reginald Street Bass, which was opposite your old school, which was swimming in the summer, and roller skating, they used to board it all over in the winter, and you could roller skate in there. And your old school, we used to have a youth club in there on Wednesday nights. So we used to go swimming, roller skating, play pontoon in the classrooms, you know, when we were teenagers. And to earn the money, it was 4p to go in all money, which was about, and you could stay as long as you liked. There was no restriction. You could dive in, run, jump in, bomb, dive off the board or anything. Nobody bothered you, staying as long as you like for 4p, which is, well, 6p is 2.5p, the old 6p, you know, so it was about 2p to go in. But to raise the money, you used to take bottles back to the shops and get deposits like they're talking about now, but they were glass bottles. If you took them back, you got 2p per bottle. Or you collected rags and papers and took them to Babes up Lowerdale Road, and they'd give you some money for them. You had a barrow or a pushchair or something, or Rob Shaw's in Bridge Street, and they'd give you money for them, you see, to earn some money. I had 2 paper rounds. I used to get up in the morning when my mum was an office cleaner, and he'd fetch the coal outside, because no central heating or double glazing, light a fire, fetch sticks up, because Bill worked at the railway, you see, you could buy wood very cheap. We had logs and stuff. And then I used to go off and do a paper round, come back, get myself some breakfast, and then go off to school to Bemrose. When I came home at night, I used to do my paper round when I got back. Saturday morning, I used to do a meat round, delivering meat on a butcher's bike, you know, with a basket on the front. Up Normington, when it was a posh area then, posh people used to ring up and say, can you deliver me a joint of beef or pork or something? And I used to have to take it. Made tips as well, you know, so it was all right. And I got 10 shillings for doing that on a Saturday morning. 10 shillings for a morning paper round, 50p. 7 and 9pence, which was about just under 40p for a night round. An extra 1 and 3pence, about 6p if you did a green round. That was a football special afterwards. You know, the green, and they used to call it, football special. I had more money then than I got now. You know, did all these sort of things to raise money.
I'm quite a sociable person, and in a funny kind of way, teaching groups of people, mature students particularly, rather than maybe undergrads, you can have discussions and quite a bit of humour going on in the class. And I can just see the class that I had last autumn, September to December. Some of them you will know, and the ages of that group varied tremendously. You know, from early 20s maybe to mid 50s years of age, and from all over the place. These are part-time students, so they were all in work, nearly all in work. But I think that connection was good, and I think that was the thing that maybe I enjoyed quite a bit in doing the job of teaching. But like most folks, marking was always a bit of a pain, but at least I didn't have to teach, and I never did teach undergraduates, you know, with 100 students, and I can't imagine what that would have been like, just the marking. 100 papers, 100 scripts, 100 exams. Most we ever had in the classes that I've taught in over the years, probably 25, the most. Last year's cohort, I think, what did we have, 17 or something like that? And it was very, very interesting. The kind of sectors that those folks came from, worked in, mainly in HR roles of one kind, human resources roles, but the businesses they came from were very, very different from the education sector in HR, from industry, public sector. So it was quite interesting, and it keeps keeps me going in terms of learning that. The aspect to the module that was particularly interesting for me, I'm not sure it was for all of the students, was it was about the effects of globalisation on people doing jobs in the UK. And so, again, that little bit of experience I had working abroad helped a bit, but things over the last couple of years have changed radically so much, and are changing at such a pace. You know, as a lecturer, you need everything to keep going with that, never mind anything else. Yeah, it's interesting being a grandparent. It's interesting being the whatever they call us now. What's our generation? You know, you're a millennial, but I'm a baby boomer, or whatever it was. Yeah, and we've got some benefits that younger people aren't going to have. You know, our own properties, for example, and so on. And my grandchildren probably they'll suffer as well. 16 and 20, even though their parents, my children, are okay. You know, the price of these things is pretty high, quite difficult for people to manage. So what difference is that going to make, I think, to the future in terms of family life, longevity and all the rest of it? I'm not sure. Try not to think about it too much, because it can be a bit depressing. So you can think about these things and get too depressed. But yeah, I like mixing with people, younger people too, particularly, and enjoy their sense of humour, and comparing, you know, humour and culture with younger people in their teens or in their 20s or even 30s, 40s. You know, it's quite interesting, and we do have a good laugh, and we survive on that quite well, I think.